Hello YouTube, it's Uncle from Reloaded with our next video here just discussing a little bit about the latest update from Supercell with the changes to air mines and air bombs being able to hit healers and the damage increase to cannons for Town Hall 9 and upward cannons and what that all means for war. So I've got a couple of videos playing in the background. Let's just look at cannons first. So obviously it's going to make ground attacks harder and it's not just going to be for mass kind of minor or bowler attacks. It's actually going to be for any kind of ground attacks. It affects Valks, you name it. I think that's probably a good thing overall. I think 3 stars at Town Hall 9 was possibly a little bit too easy compared to some of the other Town Hall levels, so it's going to make 3 stars at Town Hall 9 important and mean something in wars again, which is, I think overall that's a good thing. Lots of wars have all Town Hall 9 bases 3-starred by Town Hall 9s. And if you look at kind of some of the so-called elite war clans, they all do it on first hit, so like they end up with all their second attacks available for scouting. I don't think that's good for the game. So this is going to make it a little bit harder for everybody, but also a little bit more rewarding when it happens. So I think that's overall a good thing. But the other thing it does is it increases the viability and relative appeal of air attacks, and I think that's going to be quite interesting. If you're still going to be running with Valks, it probably means you do have to pay a little bit more attention to the placement and timing of your heal spells is going to be more important than it was. You may end up finding that you'll need to hang on to a heal spell for a little bit longer just to make them go a little bit further through the base. But if you've got a couple of options up your sleeve in terms of you can run with Valks, or you can use Goho, which is another ground-based attack, and that's going to hurt Hogs as well, or you've got a couple of air options up your sleeve. It just gives you so much more flexibility when you're looking at a base. And I think that's probably something that we will see increasingly as well. We have in our clan been seeing a few Pentalaloon attacks. I know Geek does them from time to time, and I think it's not the only type of air attack. There are plenty of others, and probably it's the how can I put it? It's the best attack that's suited for cleanup. Well, it's an attack that's best suited for cleanup. Is probably the best way to put it. It's not a great attack for a first hit. There's lots of things that can go wrong with it on a first hit. You don't know what's in the CC, and some CCs it is fatal for Pentalaloon. Depends where the Archer Queen is and whether she's going to cooperate or not, and so on and so forth. So it's a good attack for cleanup. It's not a good attack for air attacks on the first option. On a first hit, but there are plenty of other air attacks that work at Town Hall 9 and possibly at higher levels as well. Probably here's one example, which is Golaloon, which is actually easier to get the hang of than Pentalaloon, and it also gives you good experience at how balloons path and how lavas behave and the timing, but it's a little bit more flexible. So the idea is that you come in with some kind of kill squad, probably fairly light, maybe 1, maybe 2 golems. Would always recommend bowlers in the CC. And you've got a couple of targets here. You want to take out the enemy Archer Queen if you can. You definitely want at least 1 air defense, preferably 2. And hopefully you also get out the CC. And you'll see here, these geeks got very low level heroes. And other than a couple of funneling troops, the only thing that is dropped is a couple of wizards and 1 golem. And for that, just because of the reach of the bowlers primarily, actually end up taking out 3 air defenses, which is pretty insane. They're not always going to be like this. It depends very much on the base. And you can see if we just pause at this point here, there's 1 air defense left in the base. And we're about a minute into the attack, so that gives you 2 minutes left. And at this point, Geek happened to be taking Lava Hounds and Loons. But when you look at what's left in the base, I guess you've got to ask yourself could you take that out if you had, say, 8 dragons and 2 minutes? And I reckon you probably could, and you might even take some dragons with a couple of balloons. But the point is, it doesn't have to be. Air attacks isn't all about Lava Hounds and balloons. There's Dragloon works well as well. The reason why people stopped using dragons at Town Hall 9 was primarily the 4th air defense, and the dragons just couldn't get through. But if you've got 2 or 3 air defenses down, then absolutely the Town Hall 9 base suddenly looks a lot more like a Town Hall 8 base, and yeah, dragon attacks are very viable at that point. So it's worth maybe dusting off the dragons, maybe having a play with Laloon as well, trying these split phase attacks. They do give you a lot of flexibility in terms of where you deploy your troops and when you deploy your troops. If you're taking rages to help your dragons and or Laloons, it gives you the option of using a rage with the kill squad if you wanted to do that. But much more importantly, it gives you a couple of different styles of attack when you're looking at a base, because now you can look at a base and say, is this a good base for Valks? Is it a good base for a grand attack? Is this actually a bit of a base that has a weakness to air attack? So it makes it much harder for people to build a base that you can that defends against all styles of attack. And the other thing is, if someone tries to queen walk a base in war, and you see that they have put their air mines on the outside of a base, then you can drop 1 balloon on the cleanup attack and it will trigger the air mine and destroy the balloon. But there's only 4, I think it's 4 or 5 air mines in a base. I think it's 4 at Town Hall 9. So if you've taken out one of those with 1 balloon, that's huge for an air attack. If they've put all their air mines on the outside and you know where they are, it makes your dragon attack really easy, because now that's 4 dragons that you're not going to lose, more or less. So it's a real cat and mouse as to where you put your air mines, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's kind of those options there. I did also want, just on while we're talking about air mines and healers, and the other change obviously is the change to healers, where air mines can now hit healers. Again, as I said earlier, it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game all of a sudden as to queen walks and where you start them, but I don't think it's necessarily the end of queen walks. It just means there's a bit of risk involved, and on your first attack you might not get 3 stars. But here, here's a raid that's post update where I'm trying things out just as an experiment. And yeah, there's 4 healers in this base. Sorry, there's 4 healers in this raid, and they all survive to the end of the raid. So it doesn't mean that queen walks or use of healers in raids are dead. It does mean that there's a little bit of risk, but in my point of view, that's a good thing, even though it might make it a little bit harder. But where should you place your air mines then? Should they be on the outside or on the inside? So the thing about placing them on the outside is that you might screw up someone's queen walk. I mean, this is a bit of a weird base, but in a typical base, most people, if you've used the same base for a while in war, you'll get a hang of where people like to start their queen walks, and it may be that putting an air mine down will screw up someone's first hit on your base. That's a good thing, but it's a little bit like a troll Tesla. It's only going to work once, and then the other side's going to know where your air mine is, drop a balloon, trigger it, and so forth. The other thing about putting the air mines on the outside of a base is that, in general, everybody's going to have their troops go into the core of a base. Again, this is not such a good demonstration video, but in a regular war base, most people are going to need to run their troops through the core of a base. So if all of your air mines are on the outside, and if they're spread evenly around the outside, then chances are people are only going to trigger maybe 1, maybe 2 with their healers, and the other 2 they'll never find. But if you've got your air mines just a little bit inside of your base, or even towards the core of your base, you can pretty much guarantee that they will trigger all of them at some point. So I think the jury's out for me on where the best place to put your air mines is. I think there'll be a little bit of experimentation needed. Also, the other thing about having the air mines a little bit in from the outside of the base is it's harder to trigger. You can't just drop a balloon and get rid of an air mine. Like you can if they're on the very outside of the base. On the other hand, at Town Hall 11 and maybe also at Town Hall 10, there is a huge trend to try and use a queen walk to take out an Inferno Tower or the Eagle Artillery, and for both of those that might restrict the attacker's options in terms of attack style, so the game might be different at Town Hall 10 and 11, I don't know. The other thought there is, I know if you've been watching Powerbang, he's also been doing some testing with his clan in friendly challenges, and I think they did something like 6 HGHB attacks post update, and 5 of them got 3 stars. So even HGHB, not necessarily end of the world for that attack either. It just again means that there's a little bit of risk. You might also think about, if you are going to do a queen walk, taking one balloon along and dropping your queen, then dropping a balloon, then dropping the healers, and the purpose of the balloon is purely going to be to test whether there's a air mine in the vicinity. You might do that on a first hit, or you might not bother. You might just take the risk. Alternatively, you might choose to do that. If you're on a cleanup attack and you know there's an air mine, you might choose to do that and then start your queen walk. All these different options are going to come into play. I don't think it's the end of queen walks or the use of healers. I just think it's going to change the dynamic a little bit. And for me, healers and air mines are now a little bit like hogs and giant bombs. Healers are very powerful in attacks, but now they have a weakness, and you have to be a little bit careful of them. And if you know where their weaknesses are in a base, you can still use them to great effect. That's very much like hogs. At Town Hall 9, you can go-ho absolutely any base, but it's much harder if you don't know where the bombs are. And I think that's the analogy that I draw with healers. So anyway, hope that helps. If there's interest in learning a bit more about Go La Lune, and there's plenty of cool videos out there that I'd recommend and put some stuff together. But if you want my own thoughts on Go La Lune, hit me up in chat in the clan or comment on the video, and I'll pull some materials together and share some thoughts. So hope you all enjoyed the video, got a little bit out of it. Look forward to hearing everybody's comments, and in the meanwhile, clash on.